So good morning, Richard Knight of Insight6, the customer experience bloke, which is quite a statement really, isn't it? So Happy New Year. So we're just starting off 2021. What a weirdy place we're all living in at the moment. I think everybody's very lockdown tired. I sort of thought it would be really great for us to get a different take on what people can do with their business, Richard, this year, because you provide a service which is a customer experience service, and I think it would be really helpful for people to get a much better idea of what that actually means that you do. And I know that you've got some great packages, because we've talked about that before, for companies to be able to come on board with you and to experience what you've done for your other customers, which is great. In your background, and of course we are talking careers here because that's what Business Voices is all about. You've actually worked in a pharmaceutical company as a learning and development lead, and also you are a qualified teacher of PE, which is PE and sport, which is great as well, and that was at secondary school. So you know a lot more about your background than I do. So I'm going to pass the stick over to you, and you can tell us all about you, Richard Knight. And really thank you for coming and having a chat with us. We want to know about what your teacher said at the end as well. Yeah, sure. No, absolutely delighted to be here today, and thanks very much for the invitation. That's okay. It's always good to let people know sort of which avenues you go through in your career and what sort of happens. Particularly my kids at the moment, and my daughter's 16, is particularly talking about where do I go, what do I do, and I'm talking to her about there's time. We don't need to put in a plan straight away. I'm now the customer experience bloke, and if you'd asked me that at school, I'd have said, what's that all about then? Which a lot of people do. So, customer experience, what is it? Well, as the title suggests, we are all customers. We all buy something. Even today, when you're listening to this, you probably may well have been online and purchased something. We're not able to go out so much. You might have picked up some takeaway or done something like that. We're always customers. We're always consuming things. And therefore, we have an experience. But the experience we have in terms of just handing the money over is not necessarily the whole picture. Yeah. So from a customer experience point of view, we talk about an end-to-end journey. We talk about a customer journey that we go on, that all our customers go on. And as business owners, we have different customer journeys. Customer journey can start when somebody is even considering purchasing something. And so they're talking to friends and family. That is, their experience has started already about a brand or a product or a service. It's already started. Then we start doing those great things like looking on the internet, starting to talk to people about certain products, certain businesses. So our experience is starting to be built. Our emotional connection to that product and service is already being formed before we've even spoken to them. And then we think about advertising and all those sort of things that go with it, and the marketing that companies do, and we're experiencing it on a daily basis. And then we may well actually get to speak to somebody at an organization or experience their website inquiry or their phone manner. Now that can be seen as that customer service element of customer experience, and that's the thing. Customer service fits into customer experience, and so does user experience. So when you go onto someone's website and it's brilliantly slick and you can find everything really quickly, that's a great user experience, and that plays part of the customer experience journey. So that journey, actually that UX and CX thing, isn't it? Sorry to interrupt you, that we actually see all over the place. So when people go, what does it actually mean? So UX is user experience, is what they're actually seeing. And your customer experience, CX, is you, isn't it? It's the other end of that. Yeah, that's right. It's the whole thing. So user experience can be seen more around the technical processes and flows within a website. There is connection to emotion there, because we can be emotionally connected to websites and the technical piece, but it forms part of the whole journey. And as we carry on that journey, even when we finished our purchase, or even if we don't purchase from somebody, our experience is still continuing. Our journey with your brand, with your organization as a customer, is still continuing. So 6 months, 2 years down the line, we still have an experience of that journey that we went through. And it's really interesting. It's all about emotion. And actually, customer experience is all about memory. It's not actually what physically happened to me, but my customer experience is what I remember. And as human beings, we love emotional connection.
And more often than not, we remember customer experiences when they were really brilliant, or when they were really bad.
Yeah, that's right.
And the bit in the middle is the bit where we don't really remember stuff because it was all right. I call them the meh sort of experiences.
Moments.
All right.
Yeah.
And those are the sort of experiences.
Isn't it true though that we talk to people about that, don't we? We tell people about the experience we've had, like, and it's only it only takes one person to write something bad on TripAdvisor, doesn't it, for for a business to sort of to have to deal with that. And and the same if you go to the supermarket or a particular branded shop or something like that, and people will give you, oh, it's great in there, they made me feel great, and it's that whole feeling, isn't it, of how people make you feel. It's that.
That's it, exactly it. There's an emotional intelligence piece around this, that you have to have teams of people who have that emotional intelligence, because as a customer, we know what it feels like, don't we, to have great service, and what it makes us feel like, and how loyal we would then become to a brand and to a service. And we know what it's like when we're given short shrift, or we're ignored, or the response we get was particularly short and sharp. We know that it's, well, I'm not going to go back there. So how can organizations gain insight into their customers' journey with them, find the areas where they're really good at and tell people about it, because that's great, but also find the areas where actually we're not quite as good there, so how do we improve it? And that's where we come in, and we offer such great things as mystery visits to websites, physical walk-ins. So we've got teams of researchers that go out and give you that real world experience, and reporting comes back, so we can find out what that's like. But also we have our technical side, which forms part of our instant insight feedback system, which is real-time automated systems that actually enable you to ask your customers in the moment what they think. Because the worst thing we can do is not communicate with our customers, particularly now. We find ourselves in that. It's great to actually be heard by businesses as customers. We like that. So when we can do that, what we can do is we can use that information to drive what we call the review process. As you mentioned there, when people go on Trustpilot, when they go on Google, it's in the UK, 90% of consumers will go online and check reviews online before they make a purchase, and that's whether it's a product or a service. So it's an amazing amount of people who do that. So how do you ensure that you are seen on the platforms as businesses? Because it builds trust. As a customer, I like to see reviews online. I like to see reviews that are recent.
That's right.
What a lot of businesses do, they forget that they have to keep this going. They get 20 or 30 Google reviews or Trustpilot reviews, and that's from 2 years ago, and they think, well, we're okay. So, well, actually, do you know what? They haven't had reviews for 2 years. I'm not going to go anywhere near them.
And it's also, isn't it? I was talking to somebody else about this the other day. It's not just about the review that's given. It's actually about the feedback that you give back, isn't it, as well? And that's really important as well, so that you can actually build something that's valuable and worthwhile. So I'm sure you're going to tell me about that anyway, Richard.
Well, no, absolutely. I think it's a key thing, isn't it? Isn't it really great when you see businesses commenting and saying thank you for a review? It's nice. It's good manners, isn't it? So those review sites where they have no responses, or they only have responses to the ones they want to respond to, it gives you really good insight into the culture of that organization. Do I want to be associated with that organization as a customer? And the key thing there, top tips in terms of replying to reviews as businesses: don't have those conversations in the open. Don't have that defense mechanism comes through. It's the yes but mentality. Thank you for your review, but no, don't use the but word. Thank you for your review, because you've taken time to give us a review, and that's great. Thank you. We'd love to discuss it in more detail. How can we contact you? Please contact us on this number. Whatever it is, take it offline, have that conversation. But I can see, as another customer coming in, that you've dealt with it, that you've appreciated the feedback, and you would like to talk about it more.
That's right. So important, isn't it, to get that bit right? Rather than the defensive approach that people do take.
That's it. Communication. We talk about it a lot on our podcast that we do from the Southwest, the Warblings from the Southwest. We talk about it on a weekly basis. And one of the key things that comes up time and time again is that businesses go silent. Absolutely understand it as a business owner and sort of director at the moment, it's really difficult. It's hard. There's loads going on. You concentrate on everything, but if we don't concentrate on our customers, then we haven't got a business.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, indeed.
You know,
So how do we actually get to find out about the customer experience, Bloke? Then how do we actually work with you? What do you actually offer to people? So I said about the packages that you were telling me.
Yeah, sure.
Interesting. How does that work? How do people contact you?
So, well, they contact us via, richard.knight@insight6.com. So that's the way. I'm on LinkedIn, Richard Knight, the CX Bloke. You might be able to find me somewhere on there. And we've got www.insight6.com. The packages range from our instant insight package, which is just the feedback mechanism itself, which is on a monthly subscription, or we go into the more consultative nature of what we do. And we're called Insight6 for a reason. We have a 6-stage consulting model whereby we enable you to develop your goal for your customers. We gather some insight, we develop your teams and your processes with you, then we remeasure. So that flow is the one that we use as a consultation. So we can bespoke what we provide to your requirements. And it may well be some short, sharp initial insight into what's going on, or it may well be an ongoing program to really drive behavior change. And that's one of the key things. You know, from a customer experience point of view, it's about behaviors. Whether you've got great systems or not, it's about the behaviors that go off the back of it. We talk about wrapping tech with love. You've got to wrap the tech with love.
I like that. Yeah. And, you know, and my experience from sort of working in business and education for a number of years, you know, is to get it right for everybody. And then everybody has a good experience, because not everybody wants to, you know, the same product, the same service, the same everything. And everybody's needs are different, which is what you're just saying. So, Richard, you've obviously arrived at this customer experience place from a business and also an education background. So tell us a little bit about that then, because you were actually working in L&D, weren't you, which is all about finding out what is needed inside a company, exactly the same, and how to meet the needs of the individuals that you're preparing training or learning for. So how's your career taken you to this point?
Well, so it's really interesting. My career went from university into teaching, straight into teaching, secondary school PE, and just love seeing people develop. The idea that, you know, we can, through experiences, through learning, through teaching, we can develop ourselves, and it's ongoing. It never stops. And that's the key thing that I think I've got throughout my career. I from the teaching point of view, clearly you're teaching people, but, you know, you're enabling younger people to understand what's going on and make decisions themselves and start learning themselves. So it's not about me being the person who sat there and told you what to do. It's about, let's give it a go. Let's make a mistake. Let's learn from it. Let's develop. Those are the key things that I really enjoy doing. So that gave me energy, gave me motivation. So after my teaching side of things, I thought, you know, actually, do you know what? I'd like a little bit more experience in the big bad world of business, or the lovely world of business, as it turns out. I thought it was big and bad when I was teaching, but actually when you get into it, it's great. So many opportunities. And then I went into the sales environment of pharmaceutical industry. It wasn't something I'd planned, but actually I'd had conversations with people and I heard about these things, and they spoke to me about what they did, selling pharmaceutical products to doctors and hospitals. And there's a real education piece there, because the pharmaceutical representatives that sell products aren't just salespeople. They have a really in-depth knowledge about these therapeutic areas. And that was really interesting. My biological and sports science background.
I was going to say that was absolutely the roots of everything, wasn't it, really, for you, was to take that learning that you've done into a totally different environment. And that's what's so lovely about talking to people at Business Voices about their careers, because people don't, you know, they go, oh, I've been teaching for years and I don't know what else to do. And it's actually looking outside that and maybe going back to your experience, isn't it? You know, so how did you get into the L&D side of that then from your...
So the L&D side, I worked, I'd always, as soon as I got into the sales, I was trained and I went through learning and development with other people doing that for me. And I saw that role and went, I want to be in that role. So immediately, although I'd only just gone into the sales side of things, I thought that's where I'm going to move to next. I'm going to get some great grounding in the sales environment, understand the pharmaceutical industry through interacting with customers, and then that's what I'm going to move into. And I did. So I did do some management roles, and then I moved into learning and development. And that was based on product training initially, so really understanding the science around it, but actually then moves into more of the leadership skills, the selling skills, the communication skills. So there was more of a soft skill focus as I moved forward, and that really interested me, and I love that. And I was starting to get into the psychological side of performance. How do we perform really well, and how do we perform at higher levels? So that really interested me, and I carried on doing that until I was about 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry, and I had the moment of, do you know what? It's time to go and give something a go, and give something a go from my point of view. I'd learned loads around business. I'd learned a lot around business. I thought, this is time for me to go off and start up on my own. I actually started a learning and development business prior to Insight6, where I was still working with the pharmaceutical industry, but as a consultant, so going in and helping them out. And that's where I started to use other tools. So we use in Insight6, and when I was back there, something called Motivational Maps.
Yes, that's
so
right.
We understand teams motivators, individuals motivators, and how that can impact their performance. And I started to use that with the pharmaceutical industry, and really interesting to see how salespeople or medical department people have different motivators and how they influence the way we perform. But all in all, we're trying to do the best job we possibly can, and as a career choice, we need to make sure we're motivated in the choices we make. So for me, it's really, really key to hear that. Yes, I followed a bit of a medical and a science flow, but what drove me were my core skills. My love of interacting with people, my ability to have a conversation with somebody, to ask great questions. So if anybody listening out there going, "Oh, I can't possibly do these things," for me, it's not about that real sort of knowledge. It's about those soft skills we have, because if we have those and we can utilize that, we can get wherever we want, really. We get wherever we want, as long as we can ask questions and we listen. If we can do those basics, the world is, as they say, your oyster. You can get wherever you want.
It is true. It is true, though, because I call it my own business is an outside-in business model, because if you can listen and understand what people are talking to you about, you can then take that information and make it the best you can. You do it through user experience. I do it through mentoring, change, and troubleshooting, strategic development, that type of thing. And likewise, like yourself, I took my multimedia background from the 90s into education, which was a lot of blended learning, and then brought it out again as academy, through business, wanting to give people the business opportunity to, have business reach. So you can take on board a whole bunch of information from people, like I have with you just now, and go, do you know what, that all makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And then that outside in business model, it means everybody wins, because you're winning because I'm listening. I win because we've done some business together, and so it goes on. So what a great path that's actually taken then, from when you first started off with doing your biology degree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, doing all that sort of thing, and it's amazing where it takes you. And I really do believe that there's, when there's the right time to go off and try something else and give something else a go. One of the key things that within motivators we have, there's lots of creator motivators, and if you have that as a strong motivator in you, change is good. Change, going and seeking other things, and don't be getting caught up in the idea that, oh no, we've got to stay in the same job for a long time. As my dad, it's funny because my dad keeps going, "What are you doing now then?" So I can't keep up with it.
Yes, that's right.
He was in the same job for a long time, and that's where it was. But I think one of the key things with the situation we find ourselves in with the pandemic is that change is all around us. It is the only constant. We have to embrace it and we have to go with it. We can do it fast, we can do it slower, but we have to adjust, and we have to, I don't dare to use the P word, the pivot word, but we do have to sort of think about other things we can do. Where are the other opportunities? take a moment to look. And there are so many opportunities out there, and it really is a great time to be looking at where we can get to and what we can possibly do. And it's really quite exciting. Really quite
it
exciting.
is. And do you know what? I'm actually running a webinar on the 19th of January. And it's about it's that P word. It's pivoting in communications, actually. So I'm doing that with David Taylor, and he's a comms expert. He's worked in government and NHS and a whole bunch of other things. And we have very complementary skills in that, you know. So what you're doing is communicating with people to find information. What David and I do is look at the digital aspect of that. And how you can take that into insight of companies, using the experience and expertise that everybody has now these days. You know, that we're sort of talking about, and you will understand what I mean by this, of, you know, we've always done it this way and we're not going to change. And you'll come across that all the time. You know, we called it white, pale, stale individuals who are, are great at their business. They know it inside out, but they haven't got the new and up-to-date information and technology to be able to take that out. So, you know, in mentoring capacity, and you've probably heard this before as well, I hear people that spend, you know, £400 or £500 a month on somebody to get to do their social media, but that's actually part of a bigger package, isn't it? It's part of marketing, customer experience, communications, digital development, all those sorts of things. And that's, I think, the part of business that people aren't seeing. So we've put it together as a webinar, which will probably be gone by the time we talk about this, but it will be a program of events over 2021. So how's it been for you then over the lockdown periods and pandemics? Has it given companies the opportunity to think about this customer experience, Richard?
Yeah, I think, you know, there are a range of businesses out there. So a different view. You know, some of them heads down. We've got to just concentrate purely on some very small areas and keep focusing on that, and not worry about too much about that experience that the customers are going through. And on the opposite end of that scale, there are businesses who are standing back and going, right, what's going on? Because we can't carry on doing what we're doing, because we know that customer journeys have changed. You're talking about the tech. There are multiple channel access points now for your customers because of online, Zoom, WhatsApp. All of these messaging capabilities are now stepping up, and customers are expecting to communicate with you via those and to be interacting with you. Has your customer journey changed? Have you taken the time to stop and look at those? So there are businesses who've done that. There's actually four zones of customer experience readiness, if you like, that businesses find themselves in the moment. We provide this insight through what we call our CX checker. It's a free service. People just answer 12 questions and it provides them with a report that shows where they sit on that scale. So there are those who are at risk. They're the at-risk zone. They don't give a monkeys about what their customers think. They don't see the importance of doing it, and therefore they're at risk of their business not surviving because they don't know what's going on. There are very, very few businesses in that area, but there are some in there. Then we have the awareness zone, where businesses actually, as it suggests, they're aware of the customer and the need to gather information, but they're unsure how to go about doing it, or do it very, very piecemeal, and don't utilize the data in the way they can do. Then we've got our breakthrough zone, and these are the businesses who have regular feedback, are using systems to understand what's going on. They have multiple ways of checking data, whether it's surveys, mystery visits, focus groups, whatever it is, they're using all of those to understand what's going on. And that's driving the way they operate. And then you've got the impact zone, which is a very, very important zone. These are your businesses who only do and change what they do based on their customer requirements, their customer needs. They are driven by the customer rather than shareholders or the directors who, wouldn't it be a good idea? Okay, it might be, but does that fit with what the customer wants? And they know this because they're regularly asking, they're keeping the feedback coming in. So 4 zones. It'd be really, you know, people listening today, you know, where do you sit? Where do you sit? And it challenges yourself just to think, okay, do we do enough? Do we find out enough information? And when we have the information, more importantly, what do we do with it? There's loads of data out there. There's loads of data out there. It's being gathered left, right, and centre. And a lot of it doesn't go anywhere, doesn't do anything. They just think, we should ask people's feedback. Okay, so why? What are you going to do with it? Are you telling your customers you're doing something with it? What have you done? What have you changed based on what they said? Because
Yeah,
if you
and
tell
it's
them
good
that,
to really give them, sort of real-time information as well, which helps, doesn't it? Like, yeah, thanks very much for telling us that. What we're going to do is this, and we will get to you back to you by so and so. And I think it's always having that end date in mind, isn't it, of when you've actually got to get back to people so that they know what their expectation is. That's, I think, the sort of the key and the important thing. So so what sort of companies do you work with then, Richard? What type of companies? Is it retail or is it service orientated businesses? How does that work for you?
So our scope is across, well, if you've got a customer, or if a business has a customer, which generally they do, we can help. Now, that doesn't help particularly, there's lots and lots of areas. Now, what we're currently seeing, and we're currently focusing on more so, are professional services areas. And this legal, accountancy, architects, generally, if you've got an office and you're providing a service, it falls under the professional services banner.
Yes, sure.
Historically, these are organizations who haven't particularly looked at that full customer journey and customer experience because they haven't necessarily needed to. They have been the experts, and people have always gone to them because they're the only place they can gain that information. Example is, when you're moving house, I've got to go to a solicitor because they'll do the contract or do anything like that. It's not necessarily the case anymore. With the technology, with different ways of accessing businesses, we don't need to just go to one place. So therefore, these organizations need to think a little bit more down well, how are we interacting with our clients? How are we interacting with those? So we provide a lot more information. We have our legal CX events, which were the one at the end of the year was happening online. Generally, they are a conference where we get people together, which was old school. Now we're doing it Zoom. So, we've got all of these online. So we do legal CX. We also work across opticians. We've got a good base in terms of opticians, how they operate, care homes. We do the traditional hospitality and retail as well, but obviously at the moment, very, very little occurring there. Particularly, B2B as well. If you're a supplier out there to other businesses, how great or how much information are you asking from those people? How much do your suppliers ask you how they're doing for you? It's something we don't generally see as something you should do in those sort of scenarios, but absolutely you should, because people can go elsewhere very, very rapidly. And the key thing I think about that in terms of why should we bother? Well, example for me in terms of legal, I've moved house probably 10 times, sold and bought houses probably about 10 times. I've never used the same solicitor twice.
Yes, yeah. I think a lot of estate agents, don't they? They have their own preferred supplier as well, or a lot of it conveyancing now is done online as well, isn't it? I think that's the way that I used it before. So and I think it's just absolutely fascinating. So what about you, Richard? I mean, you're a family person. It looks like where's that? At Salisbury? Oh, you've got a Salisbury.
Salisbury Cathedral.
Yeah, that's
Salisbury
right.
Cathedral.
There we go. I noticed the spire on the top. So what about you, Richard? What was your schooling like? What did your teachers say about you? Is that a reflection of who you are now? Did you go up the same path you thought you would?
No, because at school, back in the day when I was at school, you had these lovely little questionnaires that you filled in from the careers person, and then they chucked it into a big computer that was probably the size of a planet at the time, and it churned out top 10 careers that you should be going into. Apparently, I should have been a librarian. So I don't think that would have worked, because my teachers always said to me, "Knight, shut up." Very enthusiastic, but needs to concentrate a little bit more. So from that point of view, I think my enthusiasm's taken me through my career really well, and I love it, and I'm glad I never tempered my enthusiasm and my ability to talk, because communication is one of the key things. However, when they did say you need to concentrate a little bit more, I did take that on board, and that does help, because every now and again now I can say to myself, step back, breathe, take a moment and reflect. And it works.
It does.
So thank you, teachers. Thank you, teachers.
And it does, and it's funny thing was, when I was actually doing some recruitment, and when I had a business in London a number of years ago, I used to do some work with Mars, the Mars bar company, and Mars used to only recruit graduates for their sales team. It was very rare that they didn't, and they said it's because they were much easier to work with and to train, enabling them to you know, sort of, I suppose, mold a shape around people. I think that, you know, that whole further education thing, why it's not right for everybody, and certainly my daughter's come home out of it at the moment, my youngest daughter, is it does give you that structured approach, doesn't it? And one little thing, only takes one little thing in your life for somebody to say to change your thought, doesn't it? You know, that whole motivational maps thing. It's James Sale, isn't it, that's done that? That you know about, and me with my psychology head on. You know, it helps you when you're actually working with people to understand how they you know, how they are operating within a particular role. So well done the teachers for talking to you about that. What's your top tip for people this year then, Richard, moving forward? What would be your top tips?
Top tip, ask how people are feeling. You know, we're talking about, you know, it's okay not to be okay. This covers everything from yourself, asking yourself how you're feeling, asking your teams how are they feeling, importantly, because that impacts your business event, you know, as a whole thing, and asking your customers how they're feeling, what you're doing, what you can do in the future, what they'd like to see differently. So it's ask people, and keep the communication going. No,
absolutely. And you know, I did a post the other day about this. Don't feel guilty. You don't feel guilty about having a day off. Don't feel guilty about, you know, not answering a call that you might answer better tomorrow. You know, and I think that people were so involved with that post that I did. It was last week, I think, and saying we really needed this just now. And sometimes it's just giving people permission. It's giving people, I think, certainly in this sort of lockdown, it's very tiring, isn't it, doing the same, being in the same place all the time. Giving yourself permission, and I think sort of if you can influence that to other people, and you know, you've got that way about you as well, where you can sort of say it's actually okay to be like that. And I say it's a lot to people at the moment, you know, when I'm speaking to them as part of mentoring, is go, you know, I'm a bit foggy headed and a bit this, that and the other, and I just say, just stop. Oh no, I can't, because then I won't make any money. But you know, sometimes you just have to do that to give yourself that break.
Yeah, absolutely. The COVID coaster continues to roll. So we need to make sure that when we're on this COVID coaster, we're taking the time when we're at the top of those peaks and things are going well. Record it and memorize it and say, brilliant, loving it. And when we're at the bottom, when we're going through that corkscrew bit and it's all a bit, let's get off every now and again. Let's get off.
And give yourself permission to do it. Richard Knight from Insight6, has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and we will get your this recorded and sent out and put onto our YouTube channel as well, where people can enjoy listening to what you've got to say, because I always like to talk to you, which is why I wanted to come and get to know you a little bit better. So thank you very much, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, been really good fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, then I'll speak to you again very soon. Thanks, Richard, and have a really great week.
Bye-bye.